They get me two first-class seats, Calgary does, because my leg is in a full cast. I need somewhere to do it. So I'm sitting, get on the plane there. This is Atlanta to Salt Lake, the first leg of my journey, and I got my leg split right across. And the flight is about to take off. The boarding is nearly complete. All of a sudden, this ginormous individual walks onto the plane.
Yeah.
It's Jaws from James Bond.
No.
And my leg is in his seat.
Welcome to Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. I'm your host, Jamie Thomas. Tremendous show on the way for you. We have all goaltenders all the time. Jamie McLennan, former NHL goaltender and current TSN hockey analyst, will join us to talk about one of the biggest injuries he received when getting hit by a puck in a game. On top of that, he'll share his thoughts on Connor Hellebuyck and Laurent Brossoit. Also, Trevor Kidd, former Brandon Wheat King, former NHLer, former Olympian. Also joining the show, he'll talk about two of the biggest injuries he received playing the game. They'll blow your mind. That and more coming up a little bit later in the show. Jets in action Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday this week. All three of those games, Central Division battles against St. Louis, Nashville, and Dallas, respectively. It's a big week here in the Manitoba capital. The Preds are here Thursday. The Stars are here for a matinee on Saturday. Get your tickets right now at winnipegjets.com/tickets. Meanwhile, the Jets practicing Monday in Arizona before their plane departed for St. Louis for that final game of the 3-game road trip. Here's Mark Scheifele and then assistant coach Brad Lauer on the mood around the team.
Yeah, it's really big. It's a big win for the team, and obviously, going down 2 wasn't the plan, but a lot of great games, a lot of good plays, and. You just got to keep that going.
It is. I mean, we talk about it a lot as a group. How important our division games and staying focused with it and making sure they get our A game every time we were playing against our division. So again, another good test for us coming up.
Clearly, as we talk about goaltenders on the show a little bit later, Connor Hellebuyck's been fantastic. Laurent Brossoit has been solid as well. But really, the domination of the third line remains the big story for the Winnipeg Jets, particularly on the road. That game in Arizona, they were absolutely dominant. Adam Lowry, Mason Appleton, Nito Niederreiter getting the job done. Niederreiter, of course, getting the hat trick. There was another sniper Saturday in that 5-3 win over top of the Coyotes, and that was defenseman Brendan Dillon. We'll start with Scott Arniel and then Dillon himself on his scoring heroics.
Lowry, good feed. Appleton spins it back. Brendan Dillon shoots and scores!
Yeah, it's nice to see sometimes, guys have to show a different side of themselves. And, every defenseman wants to be a goal scorer. And we actually talked about we needed more from our back end, whether it was, shots or, obviously assists. But goals, Dilly took it one step further. And, hey, anytime you can get that on the road like that, that's big.
Have you scored a lot like that at your NHL level?
Which one, Mike?
The blistering.
I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. We're just trying to incorporate our D a lot more. I think that line, Lau is happy. They're blue collar, getting the puck down low, tiring the other team out. And I thought that line had a lot of good looks tonight, and we're able to get it up to me there, and just got it on net.
All right, great stuff there. Before we get back to the play or get to the play of the week, let's throw some fun facts your way, courtesy of Sports Logic, and in particular, Mike Kelly works at TSN. He works at NHL Network as well. The Lowry, Nino, Appleton trio killing it 5v5. 8 goals for, 1 against, 19 cycle chances for, just 3 against, and expected goals of 76.9%. A unbelievable amount of damage from that third line, and I'll have an article for you. You can check it out at winnipegjets.com right now. Jamie McLennan from TSN is up after the play of the week. Kyle Connor's goal in Vegas was the front runner for a while, but let's go back to that third line doing some magic here in the desert.
And it falls at the Jets line. 4 Winnipeg players on the move. Morrissey, Appleton out front of the goal. They score! And he gets up involved. You will not see more of a clean entry. 4 guys get a touch, and this is picture perfect as Nino Niederreiter arrives on time. A pass right on the button.
He is former NHL goaltender, coach, and current TSN analyst. He's Jamie McLennan joining us here on the podcast. Let's get right to the thick of things. What's the worst injury you sustained facing a shot in the National Hockey League?
I was in Boston one night, and the first or second shot of the night was a guy named Brian Rolston who came down the wall and he took a slap shot, and I shrugged and my chest pad dropped down a little bit and it hit me right in the clavicle kind of sternum area, and it broke my sternum and chipped my clavicle. And because my adrenaline was going and everything was, like I hadn't, you don't play that much if you're Jamie McLennan, so you kind of grind through. So I grinded through the rest of that game. I remember being sore, and we got an X-ray. That this was in Boston, so we were playing Boston Columbus, and I played on the front end, and Kiprusoff was going to play on the back end of that. And so after the game, they X-rayed it, and there was too much blood, and it was like swollen up. They couldn't tell if it was broken or not. And I slept on it. Couldn't sleep that much because I was really sore. And then the next morning, I couldn't move my arms. I was like, God, that's, it's weird. Something's not right in there. And we didn't have a morning skate. So I went down that morning and didn't skate. I just kind of took it easy. And Kipper played that night, and we flew back to Calgary. And I got a CT scan done when we landed, and it was spidered. It had fractured in 3 different spots, kind of spidered, and then a chip on my clavicle. And I ended up, that was in 2004. I ended up playing, I think, about 10 games with it because I was backing Kipper up, and then he got hurt against Buffalo. So then they needed me because we didn't really have anybody else. It was Roman Turek who had a knee injury already. So I played a bunch of games in a row. There were times where I literally couldn't move my arms, which was weird. It's tough playing goal in the NHL when you're not moving your arms that well. But the team knew about it, and they grinded in front of me. And eventually it took a while to heal. But then Kipper came back, Roman came back, and I got traded at the deadline and ended up healing. But to this day, I still have like a lump in there, a calcium buildup. So it was that one hurt because the chest surgeon said it would take about 18 months to heal, and he'd never seen an injury like that. It was usually with car accidents, steering wheels go through like the people's chests and stuff. So there was no plate they could put into it. We just had to add extra padding over top of it. So that was a painful one.
I guess I can't even ask you, when did you question your choice of position? Was that time where you're like, maybe I shouldn't have taken up goaltending, or was there any other moments on top of that?
Well, I would always question my choice of living when I get shelled for 7 and the crowd's booing me off the ice. So, but I used to joke with the guys, you couldn't break my spirit on the 1st and the 15th of every month, because that's when the paychecks were. So even if I got headshots or got run over in the net, somehow you enjoyed the camaraderie, but you also enjoyed the paycheck. But yeah, there were some tough injuries, but that one stood out because it was probably my most predominant one. Like that one didn't feel too good, and it took me a while to recover.
A rule you would change that would favor goaltenders in today's NHL?
Well, I mean, goaltender interference, but I think there's, Ray Ferraro, because I can't take, I guess, credit for this, but Ray Ferraro and Gord Miller would always talk about when they call World Junior games and games in Europe, World Championships and that. There's that goaltender, interference rule. Or basically, if you're in the crease, they blow it down and face off outside type of thing. So it's the IIHF a goaltender rule where it's like if you're too close, then they blow it down. And I know that sounds weird, but you look at it nowadays, you're not allowed to touch a quarterback in football. And I think, that's the worst. I want to say the worst situation in hockey is goaltender interference, because it's subject to, you and I could look at the exact same play and have differing views. And then the situation room has 10 people in it. They're all looking at it going, that's a goal, that's not a goal, this is that. Like, to me, it's almost like, what is pass interference in football? What is goaltender interference? So I'd like some defined rules on that. That would be the one I would look at, because I've said this all along. There's going to be in one of these Canadian markets a goaltender interference call where it costs them a game, it costs them the playoffs, it costs them a series, it costs them something, and all hell's going to break loose, and then the league will look at changing it.
You recently went on a little bit of a rant, not a long rant, about shootouts, right? There's different ways of approaching the goaltender. You do not like the slow pace coming in to the goaltender during the shootout.
No, I don't, because it's not game-like at all. And I came in, near the end of my career is when shootouts first started.
Yeah.
I was no good at them. I was 0-2 in my career in shootouts. Both of my shootout career, opportunities, went into extra shots. One of them, I think, was like 13, and the other one was, I can't remember, 4 or 5. But it was, what bothered me about it is your whole life as a goaltender, you're taught take ice, control your gap, come in as quick as the player's coming in. It's kind of like these old school rules. And then all of a sudden, those rules get dumped on their head because a guy can do the Kuznetsov and change his angle and spin his stick and do a little pirouette. And listen, it's easy for a goaltender to complain about it, stop the puck, but it's a lot different where, those aren't things where, you grew up. Like, I didn't grow up with a shootout, so I never really got good at it, never got an opportunity to work at it every day and practice every day. Like where we see now, I swear to God, I think Malcolm Subban, I'd have to take a look at it, but his shootout stats, like I remember in like junior, this kid was like ridiculous in the shootout. So there's guys who are really good at it, and then there are guys that struggle with it. And, I like the fact that the NHL there's no ties. I think I had 35 or 36 ties in my career, which is ridiculous. Can you imagine the entertainment value when me playing for the Minnesota Wild and I had 4 shutouts and 2 of them were 0-0 ties? People would be asking for their money back. Like, it's nonsense. So, I get it. I respect it. I also think that top players shouldn't have to be subject to adding more minutes and stress into their bodies because, the guys at the bottom of the roster wouldn't see the ice. So you do have to have like a final score, which I do get, but I would like to see 3-on-3 extended a little bit more. I don't know what that number is. Even if you could add 2 minutes, 3 minutes, which you are, is adding those 2 or 3 minutes to the top players. So that would have to be a negotiated thing.
Right.
But, I always hated the shootout. I think it's because I was 0-2 and I never got to work on it in my career because it came in right at the end.
Do you get texts or phone calls from current NHL goaltenders when you're critical of their performance?
No, because I try to do it with as much respect. I knew what I was as a goaltender, and we all know as pro athletes, we are our hardest critics.
Yeah.
So, the toughest part is, you allow a goal, you're already looking up on the Jumbotron, looking at your positioning, your depth in the net, all of that type of stuff. So for me, I don't think I've ever had an analysis where I've been hard on a goaltender where the goaltender wasn't like, okay, that was fair, because I don't attack them personally. I don't, look down at them or anything like that. I've had to talk about the Edmonton Oilers goaltending at length this year. It's been a struggle for them, but I do defend them on certain things because I look at their analytics and say, Edmonton gives up the most rush chances. They're hung out to dry a lot of times, but in the end, they need to be better than what are they giving up? 87, like they're at 87% save percentage. So
yeah.
I haven't gotten a text, but I have had a little bit of feedback from a few PR guys going, dude, like, you need to tone it down a bit on my guy, which is fair. But I don't, if you know me, like I'm not a guy who comes spit and fire. I try to, again, I kind of look at it, realistic, but with respect. Honesty with respect. That's the way I look at it.
When a goaltender is as good as Connor Hellebuck is on a night-to-night basis, how hard is it to be critical of him? And on top of that, do people take a goaltender of his quality for granted? Like you play with Mika Kiprasov in Calgary. Do you feel that happens when a goaltender is as good as Connor?
Yes, all the time. That's an old saying is you don't know what you have until you don't have it anymore. Ask all these organizations that don't have Connor Hellebuck. Yeah. And I love him. You know what? I may have met him once in my life. I try and stay away even when I call games, I just try and stay away from the guys and just let them do their thing. But I love him. He's not only a great goaltender, I just love the way he carries himself. He'll give up a 7-pack and his media afterwards, like, yeah, I felt great. You're like I never had that confidence in my life where it's almost like that fake it to make it. Like he doesn't allow anybody into his bubble. I mean, in a public eye from there has been stretches where he's really struggled, but he doesn't wear it. He doesn't wear it in his game. He doesn't wear it in his demeanor. He's just kind of the same demeanor. So I respect the hell out of him. And yes, it's only natural to take somebody for granted when you have that level of greatness every night. Again, ask 22 other organizations that don't have a guy who can play 60 plus games and deliver that type of performances most nights, they would kill for that.
Laurent Brossoit is back for a second go around here in Winnipeg. How important is the backup goaltender and especially the friendship that Hellebuyck and Brossoit have?
I love it. I've watched him. Laurent Brossoit, I call him Larry Brossoit. I don't know why. I just think it's easier because I struggle with my French. Yeah. So it's like, all right, Larry Brossoit. You want to talk about somebody who's really become a really good goaltender? Like watching him develop, his first time around in Winnipeg, like he's just grown into like a really good goaltender. The way he carries himself, uses his size to his advantage. He's confident. I think he's, over the years, just developed his game and knows his strengths. And you're right. It's being a good backup to a star goaltender. You have to have that friendship. You have to have that relationship where that guy, if Hellebuyck's sitting on the bench, he's cheering for you. He wants you to play well. He wants, like I had that with a lot of my guys. Like, if it was Kipper or Luongo or Grant Fuhr and that, those guys wanted me to play well because they wanted the night off. They didn't want to have to go back in and, mop up some mess that the goaltenders made. So I think it's so important having that relationship. And I think Laurent Brossoit, Larry, my favorite backup, I think he's a top tier goaltender. I think he's awesome.
Do you tell them, hey, I have 36 ties in my NHL career and 400 ties?
They wouldn't believe it. Honest to God, those guys would look at my stats and be like, are you ridiculous? Like, is that like old? It's funny. Current players look back at old player stats and are like, what is that? Like, what is, like, can you remember? I mean, you're old enough to remember ties. Like, you go home and you spend a bunch of money on a ticket. You go, how was the game? Oh, they tied 3-3 tonight. You're like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. So yes, 36 ties in my career.
I left the Saddledome a couple of times with 4 ties growing up when my parents had season tickets there. You love the hardworking guy as much as anybody. How much are you appreciating the way the Adam Lowry line is playing right now and the way they're dominating 5-on-5?
You know what? I love it because there's an old saying, like there's players and lines and teams that don't cheat you for effort. That's the captain there. That's his line. That's what they've been doing. Their 5-on-5 game is strong, but it's not. There's lines out there nowadays where they're called disruptor lines. You go out and you kill a bunch of time off the clock. You get some momentum, and then you hand it off to your top lines. That's not them. They're contributing offensively. They are not only disruptive, but they are, they're a force to be reckoned with too. They've got size, they've got speed, they've got skill. So you're not only just looking at, the top line and circling them, you're circling that line and going, that's a pain in the ass to play against. Mm-hmm. And that's where I respect that a ton, because now all of a sudden the other team has to deal with layers of a team, not just, a top 6 or a top 7 or whatever. You're looking at it and going, that third line could play against anybody and not just defend. They can go the other way and score. So it's impressive. I've liked what the Jets are doing. I like their depth, but that line has been really good this year.
Well, you have quite the line with Brian Hayes and Jeff O'Neill, O-Dog. Do you guys ever get in arguments off camera that we don't see and would love to see, or chirp one another when the cameras are off?
There's lots of chirping. There's lots of on the group text, but there's not. The arguments aren't, not really. Like we're, 3 grown-ass men with families. You're kind of like, okay, if you disagree on your take on Austin Matthews, it's not personal. If you disagree with, hey, this guy needs to be traded, or this guy, somebody did this. For the most part, like the 3 of us get along really well. And what's best about us is we rarely talk before the show, because if you talk before the show, you feel like you already got some of your material going. So It's better. We have a game plan, and then you turn the mics on and then you start talking. So we'll see. I feel like that's kind of the chemistry between our line.
And like, just what's something that's underappreciated about Brian Hayes?
His sports knowledge, ridiculous. If you actually listen to him talk, you'll say something that's like, yeah, you know what? Like the Bulls won in the 90s, and he'll go, yeah, that was 93 that they won. And it, like his like it's almost Rain Man-ish. Like it's where he can pull. He's got an unbelievable memory. He can pull on something where, you know, my memory of other sports comes from years of watching it, not so much current. You know, he's huge on football. He's huge on basketball, all of that. But like, I'll have watched something years ago and be like, do you remember that, you know, that play that happened in the 90s? And he's like, oh yeah, that was, you know, the coach was this, the GM was that. Like he's got unbelievable knowledge, but his memory of it is what's impressive, because, and being able to call on it on the drop of a dime. If we end up off topic talking about something random, he'll be able to contribute to that conversation.
Something that's underrated about O-Dog.
He's kinder than people think. No, he's a man of the people. He's a man of the people who doesn't, you know, he's avoids a lot of public confrontation, but he's very kind. And he wants, you know, he wants people taken care of. Like he, you know, randomly he'll call, and I've been on the road or something. He'd be like, why are you on the show today? You need to rest. And I'm like, dude, I'm fine. Like, let's just have a good one. Like, you know, he's very, very kind to, you know, his inner circle, put it that way.
All right, last. This is a doozy one for you. Hockey is a small world, as we've done. You played junior hockey in Lethbridge. I covered the Lethbridge Hurricanes, early 2000s. That was during a time when one of your best friends, Michael Dick, was the assistant coach with the Hurricanes. So he told me to ask you about the Rockford Files incident in the Earls parking lot.
I can't name names. Okay. So first and foremost, I will not name names because some of these guys still work in hockey to this day. But we had a night out at Earls, and we had a designated driver. And one of the guys, for some reason, as the driver pulled up, one of the guys decided to jump on the car instead of in the car. And it spooked the driver, and the driver floored it, and for some reason fishtailed, and it threw the guy off the top of the car. And he did like 100 dive rolls and ended up like against the fence in the corner. And I was like, oh my God. And as we walked out, like there was a few of us, and again, keep in mind, it's a little later in the night. One of us was like, holy smokes, Rockford Files, which is an old show, which was, you know, I don't know if you remember the old Rockford Files. There was fights and guys on top of cars and stuff like that. So basically there was a slight injury on the play. The person who was on the vehicle and did the dive roll did not miss any time to play, but there was some concern that night, put it that way, as to how we were going to deal with the trainer the next day, because there was a slight ankle injury from all of the rolling. But yes, you know, everybody who's listening, and especially kids, don't jump on top of a car, and then don't spook the driver so he floors it. I still blame the driver. Like, why are you flooring it with somebody on top of your vehicle?
You should be like stepping on the brakes, if anything, like slowing. Like, bad things happen if your car is moving. These are obvious choices, especially when you're sober. So, like, I don't understand the logic here.
The designated driver floored it and then fishtailed for some reason. So that didn't go well.
You'll appreciate this. Michael is a large man, about 6'3", wouldn't you say? And so he used to come in. Our Brad Curl is, of course, the play-by-play voice of the Calgary Hitmen right now, and he was with the Lethbridge Hurricanes. And Dickers would come in our hotel room, and we'd wrestle, just because feats of strength, obviously. And you know that space between the two beds, we call that the crevasse. And you never wanted to get stuck between in the crevasse when you're fighting Dickers, because he's so big. So he had me on the way down, and I'm twisting and turning, and I'm trying to figure out, because he's way bigger than I am, and I'm like, I'm going to lose this battle. So I grab, this is back in the day when there's still phones in the hotel rooms. I grab the phone, I take it, and I hit him as hard as I can right in the chest. Like, I think I almost caved in his chest, because I was so desperately trying not to go down, because he would have killed me if I would have ended up on the floor there. So I know you appreciate all this stuff, but I appreciate you and all the stories that you told here today, and I appreciate your time. So thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. We'll chat soon, and we'll do it again.
What are you gonna do, Maddie? Maddie, what are you gonna do?
One starts tonight, right? Right.
Perfetti pushing down behind the plate with Mahura.
Hey, Fritz!
You know, guys aren't, usually seeing me drop my gloves, but it's just kind of the way the game went.
Two franchise cornerstones had agreed to 7-year contract extensions.
Just kind of tried to give him the perfect handoff like a quarterback.
All right, our next guest, of course, is Trevor Kidd, the former Brandon Wheat King, former NHL goaltender as well. We apologize for the video issues for those of you watching the podcast on video. Trevor was out in Kenora, Ontario. His reception wasn't very good. And we also apologize for Jamie McLennan. He was moving around the TSN studio, so a little blurry at points. So we apologize to you, but please enjoy this interview with Trevor Kidd. Hey, we've done this before. We're going to do it again. It's Trevor Kidd, former NHL goaltender, NHL analyst, and a man of many talents. Trev, what have you been up to nowadays, and what's keeping you busy as of late, long past your National Hockey League career?
Listen, kids are going up out of the house in the last couple of years. So personal-wise, enjoying, it's almost like dating again, JT, getting to know the wife. You're 3 kids, you're going everywhere in the evenings. I know lots of people that got kids in hockey and sports and volleyball and soccer can attest to that. That evenings are usually super busy, whether that be winter or summer or anywhere in between. So kids are out of the house, so it's been kind of an interesting couple of years for the wife and I. Work-wise, you mentioned I just still do some stuff with Kelly and Studio B and the pregame show, postgame show. Really like doing that, but during the days, the last 4 or 5 years, I've been building custom homes. So I'm doing this Zoom call here from the middle of Lake of the Woods, warming up. It was a kind of a frosty ride up, lots of snow and freezing rain. But anyone that would have saw me whistling across the lake on a pontoon boat to get to the job site today probably would have thought, is that a crazy goalie doing that or a contractor? But a little bit of both.
Hey, I got to ask you, with your 3 kids, how many times did you bring up how good of a goaltender you were? And are there any stories that your kids are tired of hearing from Trevor Kidd, the former NHL goaltender?
You know what? No, it's I was lucky. I've had 3 girls that had some, whether it be my wife claims that it's her genes and her blood that gave the kids all the sporting abilities, which I don't think I can argue, but they all played high-level soccer, and have 2 of them are still down south. One played at University of North Dakota that we're all familiar with from a hockey perspective on the hockey side, but my other 2 daughters played Division I as well down in Texas. So you know what, I finished playing hockey and really just got involved with them and their sports and that soccer, and certainly my girls like to reflect on every once in a while. Like, they're pumped that I'm doing this podcast thing with you because they like listening on some of this. They're older now, so they can they live in it a little bit. My kids, I think, started to know what was going on my last couple of years in Toronto, but certainly their babies are youngsters when you start talking about Calgary or Carolina or Florida. So they love it when either get involved with the Leafs alumni to do a few things or do some of these types of interviews, because it gives an opportunity to listen in after the fact and learn about a little bit more what their dad did back in the day.
Okay, well, with that in mind, what was the worst injury you had from a shot while playing in the NHL?
From a shot?
A lot.
Well, this is a bit of a crazy story,
okay.
JT. Well,
I love it.
I guess you could say a lot, but they changed the All-Star game. So go back to this was when I was in Florida.
Right.
They still do it with each individual team has the All-Star localized event, whether it be fastest skater, breakaway, whatnot. So this was back in Florida. I was there, and it was Florida's. They invite all the kids from schools. There's maybe 5,000-6,000 kids during the day, and so it was our pre-All-Star localized event. The specific event that was the breakaway drill. Here was there was 30 seconds on the clock. You kind of laugh about it, but it hurt a lot when I finished telling you what happened here. It was 30 seconds on the clock, 5 pucks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You could take all 5 pucks, breakaway, score, not score. When that 30 seconds was over, if there was any pucks that were loose in the vicinity, you had 10 seconds left on the clock, you could go try and pick up any of those pucks and use them as a rebound opportunity. Okay.
Okay.
So Peter Worrell was our tough guy. Okay. And he is doing this breakaway contest, does all 5 pucks. There's maybe about 10 seconds left on the clock. He grabs a puck that was over behind me to my left side. So as he is going to shoot that puck, I lean over I drop my stick and I lean over with my blocker to basically try and prevent him to grab this puck, to get it away. And I end up just, not thinking, instincts, I grab his stick. Well, in that specific moment, that half a second, as I'm grabbing his stick and giving it a full grip, he goes to shoot the puck in the net.
Okay.
Well, it tears my arm out of its socket.
What?
Yes.
What?
So it changed a lot of things for Florida that year, because I think at the time my record was 17-2.
Mm-hmm.
We were racing along. I was looking forward to hopefully being named to my first All-Star game, because we had done this in November. I was having, I would say at that point, a career year. My shoulder gets torn out of its socket, and Brian Murray has to make a big decision there, him and Chuck Fletcher at the time, and he ended up trading for Mike Vernon. I rehabbed, came back just prior to the playoffs, but ultimately I had to get surgery. I got traded or moved on to Toronto after that, and after my first year in Toronto, I had it surgically repaired. So it was I really didn't have a puck. Certainly there was moments where a puck hurt, yes, but my 2 biggest injuries, and we don't have enough time to talk about the first one, me breaking my leg, but I had 2 significant injuries playing the pipes. The first one, and I'll go quickly here, was in Atlanta Flames. So, Calgary Flames, this is Atlanta, the former home of the Calgary Flames. This is Atlanta, and they just introduced new pegs in the net, JT.
Right.
So it was new moorings. And I forget the player that came down on me on a breakaway, but he somehow tripped up around the hash marks, and I ended up, I was a Dominik Hasek type guy, maybe a little bit erratic at times, JT. I stacked my pads on a breakaway. He slides through me, and the net doesn't come off.
Oh.
The net doesn't come off the moorings. So I actually break my right tib on this thing. They get me off of the ice. Glenn Hall, Hall of Famer, is our goalie coach. He's down in Atlanta watching me play. Glenn Hall actually is in the medical room in the depths of this Atlanta arena, cutting off my equipment for the medical staff to get me in the ambulance and get me off to the hospital. It'll keep it at that. It was kind of a scary moment. You're in downtown Atlanta overnight. The Flames wouldn't let any doctors do anything. They just put my leg in a cast, and that was it. We'll get you on a plane back to Calgary. So I go Atlanta, Salt Lake, Calgary. They get me 2 first-class seats, Calgary does, because my leg is in a full cast. They need somewhere to do it. So I'm sitting, get on the plane there. This is Atlanta to Salt Lake, the first leg of my journey, and I got my leg split right across. And the flight is about to take off. The boarding is nearly complete. All of a sudden, this ginormous individual walks onto the plane.
Yeah.
It's Jaws from James Bond.
No.
And my leg is in his seat.
Do you mind if I put my leg over top of you, sir?
Right. So everyone's going crazy in first class. No one knows what to do. Jaws is now on the plane looking for somewhere to sit. You can't sit in economy. It's impossible. So they make things work. The guy ends up sitting behind me. Who knows what they gave the other, that first class person to go move back into economy
Mm-hmm.
for Jaws to sit somewhere in first class because my leg is in his seat. Great guy. He knew nothing about hockey for that, whatever it was, 2 hours, 3 hours to Salt Lake from Atlanta. He chewed my ear off, literally, about hockey.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Two crazy injury stories that I don't share that often, but I'm sharing them with you, bro.
Thanks, buddy. And now have you told your kids that story, or is this?
They're aware of those.
I was going to say, I was hoping this is exclusive. I can pass this on to your children. So, was there a teammate of yours that you did not like scoring on you in practice?
I would say I had the biggest competitions in practice with Pavel Bure.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We, honest to goodness, at the end of practices, we would stay out there for. The Zamboni guy would get peeved off at us. He'd finally just start running the Zamboni onto the ice because we would do breakaways. Everyone's off the ice. They're trying to shut the lights off, and me and Pav are still doing breakaways and best of fives and best of tens and everything else in between we for many hours in a season would do breakaways.
Would the coaching staff get frustrated with you guys?
No, Pav was one of those first guys when he got traded to Florida from Vancouver. He was one of the first guys that was making huge dollars, JT, at that time. He signed a massive contract.
Yeah.
Became the captain basically because of it. And Pav was I played for, Ronnie Francis as a captain, Gary Roberts, Joe Newendike, great leaders, Matt Sundin in Toronto, where those guys spent tons of time in the locker room with the guys, with other families. Pavel was a different captain. Once he got off the ice, that was it. You didn't see him again. You wouldn't see him till the next practice or the next game. He didn't host family get-togethers. He didn't spend a ton of time at the rink with the fellas, other than when he was on the ice. He loved being on the ice. He loved playing the game. So no one would really ever say anything to him because that was his time. You could tell him he was, enjoying himself, and you were having fun. And a lot of guys also participated in some of those breakaway things that we would do. So it was, maybe his way of being a captain and spending time with his teammates was in those certain situations.
Buddy, obviously the game is geared towards offense right now. What rule would you change or put into place that would benefit goaltenders in today's game?
You know what? To me, it'd be interesting to take the trapezoid away right now to see what that would look like with how fast the game is, how quick players are, and what that would do from an offensive perspective. Whether it be, a goalie being a part of the offense from a breakout, but listen, goalies are, I would say, not the greatest of that part when you think of Marty Brodeur and Ronnie Hextall and those guys playing the puck outside of that trapezoid behind the net. What I think a lot of people forget is that they were good skaters. Like, they could move outside of the net.
Yeah.
I don't, because we're generations now away from that, you see it. I mean, goaltenders don't need to necessarily skate. Everything is played with the blades faced up the ice, whether they're moving or recovering. Seldom do you see a goaltender that has that type of skating ability that you used to see. That is the one that would intrigue me from a goaltender's perspective, to see, would they get caught in the net trying to be a part of the defense, to be a part of the breakout? What would it create? I mean, they took it away because the Marty Brodeurs and the Ronnie Hextalls became too good at breaking down the offense, teams dumping the puck in. But now the game is so changed where, you might get the fourth line team dump in, play a physical type of game, but first and second lines, this now, like, you don't dump the puck in. You might try and put it behind the defenseman, but you're not seeing the first line of a hockey club dump the puck in and chase it down and play a physical. You're trying to enter the zone with possession. So that's one that I'd be interested in seeing if it ever came back, is what that would look like in today's game.
Does Connor Hellebuck get enough credit for how much he's improved playing the puck, in your opinion?
I mean, yeah, Connor Hellebuck. I mean, communication is a big thing. Repetition is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the staff, the players, the personnel, that it's twofold. I think they've now become to read off of each other really well, both Connor Hellebuck and the defense corp. That really hasn't changed now in 3 or 4 years, as you're aware. JT, it went from the Trubas and the Bufflins and the Myers to the DeMellos and Schmitz and Morrissey now. So I think those guys are real accustomed to each other and reading off each other. That's certainly a part of it. And to me, this day and age, that is really, to me, most of it. Because from a goaltending perspective, you're just chipping it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're getting behind the net. What does that communication look for? Is it a backhand pass? Is it a forehand pass? Is it just, generally speaking, and I know when I played, you're trying to find a player. Marty Brodeur was trying to find a player at the top of the circles, right? Yeah. You're trying to find somebody in a breakout position. A goaltender behind the net now is just trying to find an outlet, and that outlet is usually still behind the goal line. It's just in the corners. So Connor Hellebuck, in my opinion, has gotten better at reading, finding those outlets. But a huge part of those outlets is the reads. And I think just because of the repetition, the personnel not really changing over, is that they've really learnt off of each other and what that should look like.
How challenging was it for you to go from being a National Hockey League goaltender to an analyst that then criticizes goaltenders when they're not playing as well as maybe you think they should be, right? That must have been hard for you.
Yeah, I would say I'm a guy that I try and find, I guess, the middle ground, the common ground. Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm a guy that overly criticizes the position, because I knew how hard it was myself to play it. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen on a daily basis on and off the ice that might affect you and how you're playing. Certainly injuries being one of them. And yeah, I mean, Connor Hellebuck at times, has had his moments, but I mean, Connor Hellebuck is a Vezina-type goaltender here. You'd have to go pretty far back to find, go back 3 years ago, I guess 4 years ago, some of the criticism was, the high shots or the blocker shot that might go in from distance or the top of the circles. Oh boy, you might have to, it just doesn't happen anymore. I think that's the big thing about Connor Hellebuck and what he does for the Winnipeg Jets, and sometimes gets we underestimate his impact on this team and his ability. He competes, he plays the position so well, he's always in the right spot, he's in the right space. His positioning has really dialed in the last couple 3 years, JT. But with that, sometimes you forget about how athletic he is. Like, he is a very athletic goaltender, and that's the part that I like enjoying about Connor Hellebuck, is he can play a game, make 20 saves, and really make it look boring.
Yeah,
but he can have a couple of those nights where it's not going as perfect, or there's a lot more backdoor plays or whatever it is, and he can open up and do the splits and spread out and be acrobatic like anyone else in the league. And that's what's so unique about Connor Hellebuck, is he can make the game look boring at times, but when needed, when called upon, he is a super athletic goaltender.
One last one for you, my friend. You played 43 of 48 games in that 94-95 lockout season with the Flames. Is there a right amount of games that a number one goaltender should play in your mind, or do we make too much of how many games a number one goaltender plays in a season?
You know what? There's certainly a feeling to it. As a goaltender, when you're in the zone, that means a lot to you. The game slows down for you. It becomes a little bit easier. So there's a huge management process to that. And I think, nowadays, the way they take care of bodies, the way they manage workloads. And when I say workloads, it's the practice work. Well, JT, you've been a part of it behind the scenes. Practices now for goaltenders are so different than what they were 10, 15 years ago. And that's why I think sometimes the game management of a goaltender has to be weighed with what they're doing away from the rink, what they're doing as a recovery, what do the practices look like. You cannot just look at 82 games. Is he going to play 50? Is he going to play 60? Maybe it's whatever that number is, has to be weighed with those other two components. And it does, but a lot of people forget about it. Like the recovery is totally different than when I play. How they travel, how they eat, practices for goaltenders now. I mean, they put a shooter tutor up or put someone else there, that third goalie that comes out of the bleachers. When you get into the depths of the season, that's all that matters. It's playing the game. So what is the magic number? It's tough to say. Every goaltender, every coach manages that different. But certainly I think when you start weighing that decision, JT, you have to keep in mind those two other factors also play a big part of that decision.
Buddy, I appreciate your time. Just to let you know, if I was in the first class with you, I would let your leg sit on top of my legs while you recovered from.
I know you would. That's why I love you, man.
I love you too, buddy. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, JT.
That's it for the All Goaltending podcast here on Ground Control, the official podcast of the Winnipeg Jets. Of course, I'm Jamie Thomas. Many thanks to Trevor Kidd and Jamie McLennan for sharing their stories and their thoughts on the Winnipeg Jets. Big week for the Jets. Make sure you tune in any way you can on TV, on the radio, and here on the website, winnipegjets.com. Our guest next week, Mason Appleton. We look forward to that. Thanks for watching or listening. We'll see you next time.